Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host Khalid. But today is the 6th of August 2024 and these are the stories that we'll try to decipher during the course of the show. We'll begin with the day 305 of the Israel-Palestine war. Whereas on the one side the brutalities continue to happen, the number of casualties continues to increase, whether it be the injured, whether it be the dead, whether it be all the problems that are correlated with the displacement of the Palestinians either from one place or the other. All of this continues. In all of this, the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, is going to hold an open-ended extraordinary meeting of its executive committee at the foreign ministers level tomorrow, that is Wednesday, to discuss the ongoing crimes of the Israeli occupation against the Palestinian people. Now, this has been done on the request of course, all the latest developments that have occurred, whether it be the killing of or assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, all the other issues that have also increased, of course the tensions in the Middle East that have also increased, and that was on the request of Iran that this meeting has been requested. Now, this and more will be discussed in our first segment, the importance of the OIC, what is happening in Palestine and what needs to be done. Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns Bangladesh. Now, Bangladeshi student protesters have said that they are going to push for Nobel laureate Muhammad Younus to lead an interim government in Bangladesh. Why? Because of course they protested, those protests became ugly as the reaction was very severe and more than 400 people lost their lives in these protests. Around 113 people were killed in one day alone. Now this led to important measures that were taken. The parliament has been dissolved. The Prime Minister Sheikhhasina has fled Bangladesh and currently is in India, or maybe not be staying in India for long and might be going into some other country, but she has left Bangladesh. Her family, her son in fact, says officially that she is not to return to politics, nor will the family return to politics. There is talk of a national government being made. There is talk of also this Mr. Muhammad Younus, who is a Nobel laureate, to lead this government. Whether this happens or not, the protesters, the students, are adamant that they want the government or the army that is currently in charge to pay heed to their requests or their pledges. Next, we'll be talking about rocket attacks that have killed multiple US personnel in the Iraqi base. More or less a bit related to what is happening in Palestine, because of course this is latest in a series of attacks that have been targeting Ain al-Assad base in western Iraq, which hosts American troops as well as personnel from the US coalition against the Islamic Jihadist group. And finally, we are going to talk about Google, that as per a US judge has violated the antitrust law. Now, the judge says that spending billions of dollars to create an illegal monopoly and becoming the world's default search engine is something that is not normal and is against the law, and it seems to be the first big win for federal authorities taking on big tech's market dominance. This is going to be our last story. Let's begin with our first, and that concerns the situation in Gaza. Day 305, an OIC extraordinary meeting of the level of the foreign ministers to be held tomorrow on the request of Iran. The number of casualties continues to increase. We've been joined by two guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. In my studio, we've been joined by Dr. Amna. She's a foreign affairs expert and a regular in our shows, and it's always a pleasure to talk to her. Dr. Amna, thank you very much to have joined us.
Thank you, Omar, for inviting me.
And online, we've been joined by Dr. Shabana Fayyaz. She's an international affairs expert and joins us in this show after a very long hiatus. Thank you very much, Dr. Shabana, to have joined us. Let's begin with you, Dr. Amna. The OIC is going to hold an open-ended extraordinary meeting of its executive committee of the foreign ministers level tomorrow in Jeddah at the OIC General Secretariat. The meeting convened on the request of Iran in response to the atrocities being committed by the Israeli forces against the Palestinian people, particularly in the Gaza Strip. How important a development is this? What could, in your point of view, be the outcome of such a meeting?
Apparently, Umar, it's a very good development that OIC meeting is being conducted at foreign minister level, and it is very important that the request is coming from Iran. That is actually they have suffered they were the host and their sovereignty was breached, and there was a security breach within Iran that Ismail Haniyeh was assassinated by Israel. So I think that it is very important that Iran requested for. But as far as the outcome is concerned, everybody knows outcome may be a resolution, a statement coming out of that the world should address this and that. So we are not very optimistic about any material thing coming in to stop genocide in Gaza.
But Dr. Amna, what I'd like to understand, the OIC General Secretariat takes out a statement, talks about the deaths of around 40,000 individuals, mostly women and children, more than 91,000 Palestinians who've been injured since the 7th of October, talks about civilian properties, 430,000 homes. These are figures that it has given, have been destroyed along with infrastructure, hospitals, schools, mosques, historical sites. 2 million Palestinians, the statement says, have been displaced due to the attacks. I understand that maybe the OIC could be or might be relegated to a statement, but what other, in your point of view, apart from getting together and taking out a statement, role could the OIC play in a broader perspective to end this war or to lead to a ceasefire? Can it, for example, talk to the United Nations, talk to the Western countries, hold a meeting as an organization with other important organizations to look for steps that could be taken?
Yes, it is very important that what measures OIC take for that purpose. And these figures are known, by the way, to public, and these are not the sources quoted by Middle Eastern sources only, except Al Jazeera. There are all the world sources are also quoting these figures, and these figures are much more than if we count the persons which are below the rubble, and they are not counted in these 40,000. And what about those who are survivors? They are living without food, they are living without water, sanitation, and without medicines. There is no facility there. They are also counted because they are going to die within that 300 days coming ahead, and the war is not ended right now. So I think that OIC can take this concrete measure that we will block and we will cut off all the economic ties with the countries who are supporting their own oil supply. And those countries, even they are the member of OIC, they are not urged, they are rather directed to stop all trade, all oil supply, all coordination, all conduct with Israel. And they would use their pressure on United States as well. They would use their leverage on United States to stop that war, to conduct a ceasefire agreement on the terms that there would be no war again. You know, that is the demand of. I think that is the solution. And we have seen that resolution has no meaning because UN Security Council has passed.
Exactly. And that resolution, what happened to that resolution? Nothing.
That resolution is not implemented because the proponent of the P5, they themselves say that this is not binding. If UN resolution is not binding, then what else is binding?
How can we make a resolution binding on whether it comes through the ambit of the OIC or the United Nations Security Council?
That is more important because ambit of United Nations is much more important, and it was basically the reason for making UN, and especially the Security Council. And the stated goal of UN Security Council is that it would stop war before it happens. And if there would be war, it would introduce the measures, take the measures to stop war and control the damages done by the war. But UN Security Council has failed to do that. It means that it is no more relevant. And the P5 were responsible, and they were guarantor of the world peace. And since they are saying that it is not binding, so I think that UN Security Council has lost its relevance right now.
We've been joined by Dr. Shabana Fayyaz, who's an international affairs expert, and she joins us after a long hiatus. Dr. Shabana, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Shabana, as you very well know, tomorrow is an extraordinary meeting of the OIC that is being held in Jeddah in the general headquarters of the OIC Secretariat. I'd like to refer to the previous meeting that was held in May, and there was a 34-point agenda or declaration that was taken out that was stressing the urgent need to resolve the disputes in Palestine, and of course also IIOJK. But if we just relegate ourselves to Palestine, it expresses support and calls for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire, and calls upon the members to mobilize international support for the recognition of the Palestine state and gain it complete and full membership of the UN. I'd like to understand what happened to these 34 points that had been taken out in the declaration? Secondly, do you feel these points could be retaken in this extraordinary meeting that has been called on Iran's request tomorrow? Do you feel some kind of a positive outcome could come as a result of this meeting tomorrow? And what needs to be done by the OIC in this respect? Your take.
Thank you so much, Omar Saab. I'm extremely sorry I've been missing your show for quite long because some other parallel activities. Well, the point that we should be discussing is that whether Palestine is a human issue or a human gross violation issue or not. This is a fact that is being registered by the UN General Assembly at the International Court of Criminal Justice and also with the OIC and other Muslim countries and even the Christian countries. So this is a fact that is being registered all over the world. The point is that what will happen and what has happened with the OIC declarations. We all know that the declarations, from the OIC regarding Kashmir, Palestine, and many other issues, similarly like in United Nations case, uh, cannot be binding on the member. It is because since the organizations don't have some police force or the armies or other like that, unless it was moved like after war on terror, it was used by the UN Security Council resolution. So this is a point that leaves a big challenge to the implementers of how to go about it. So for that, the parties that are involved in the conflict, the parties that can pressurize the Israel, that is very critical. And I think here the regular meetings of the heads of the Muslim states is very, very critical and should not be ignored.
All right. In that case, how do you view also when you come to the OIC or the United Nations and Palestine, how do you see Pakistan's role? We've been highlighting it on the different fora at the ASEAN, at the United Nations, and now also at the OIC. How do you view Pakistan's role, and what should Pakistan now go towards as far as the Palestinian conflict is concerned in these fora, whether it be the OIC meeting that is going to be held tomorrow or the United Nations as well?
Yes, Pakistan. If you look into the Pakistan's policy towards the Palestine, it is as old as the issue of the Palestine, and it is very much inked in the constitutional imperatives of Pakistan that evolved with the very first speeches of the Muhammad Ali Jinnah, was our founder of the nation. So we have always been on the forefront of flagging the injustices that have been going on in case of Palestine and also later in case of the Kashmir. Coming to the part that what is and what can Pakistan do, I think the Pakistan has been playing a very proactive role in the issue of the Palestine. As we all know that before the Israeli launched the war on Palestinian, areas, what happened was that there was a bit of rapprochement going on in that part of the region. But Pakistan was always very conscious and remained conscious of the fact that it has to take a path that goes along with the number one in line with the other major Muslim countries that we are friends with, very close friends with, and also in line with the aspirations and the constitutional bindings of the country. So what can we do in future? We have been sending the rations. We have been giving the moral support. Our media has been covering the very unfortunate happenings that has been going on. The medical doctors have been going from our part of the world to be a part of the medical platoons that are working there. The different sort of the economic incentives in ways of the grains, the different sort of the educational offers have been extended to the Palestinian peoples or the refugees. So this is all we have been doing. And apart from that, Pakistan has been going to the forums like the Moscow, the ASEAN, and other forums to flag that this has happened and we need to be together on this issue. With the Turkey, we have been, highlighting the issues similarly with Saudi Arabia, UAE, and other countries, even with the Chinese. The Pakistan has been always on the forefront that the Palestinians have to be together on, putting up a joint face versus the aggressions of the Israelis.
Before I go to Dr. Amna, one quick answer. Our Prime Minister, while talking in the National Assembly just a couple of days back, emphasizes the need to make the OIC more effective a platform to address the plight of the Palestinian people. How can the OIC be made more effective to deal with issues such as Palestine? What's your point of view on this? Shabana? Dr. Shabana, are you with us?
Yes, yes, I'm very much with you.
No, I was just asking you a question. I was just about to go to Dr. Amna, but I wanted to ask you this last question on our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, who, while talking in the National Assembly a couple of days back, says that there is a need to make the platform of the OIC more effective to address the plight of the Palestinians. How, in your point of view, can the OIC be made a more effective platform to deal with issues such as Palestine?
I think number one, Umar Saab, we have to be very sure the Prime Minister Pakistan is echoing the voice of the people of Pakistan. This is very much, it is more than 90%, 99.9% that is with the Palestinian cause. He's echoing that sentiment. And how to make it more effective, I think it really calls for more diplomatic engagement with all the prominent OIC members, not only the Gulf or the Arabian countries, but also the African countries. And how it can be made, I think the most important is, like in case of Iran, they have called for a special session and it has been done. It is going to happen. This calls that there is going to be more unity. And because while there is a realization that if the war expands, the frontiers of war expands, the Muslim countries and also the other aggressions in part of the other parts of the world, like in our case or in other Africa or otherwise, it will give momentum to that aggressive sentiments that can be used otherwise. So I think the OIC is at the very critical, is happening at the critical juncture, and Prime Minister knows that, and Pakistan must seize this opportunity to sensitize that this something that you cannot, ignore that. And although there have been strong statements, but maybe we should be, as has happened, is that there has been the trade embargoes with Israel. There has been the trade, sanctions imposed by some of the Muslim countries of the countries who are acting or supplying some goods to the Israel. So many sorts of these actions will be taken. I personally feel that this can be a very effective way of dealing with the aggression going on.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shabana Fayyaz, to have joined us for this very important segment on Palestine. Dr. Amna, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan tells the presser in Cairo that Turkey is going to formally submit its declaration of intervention in South Africa's genocide case against Israel in the ICJ today, International Court of Justice today. How could this impact the intervention, the ICJ ruling on the case of Palestine and, of course, on Israel?
I think that is very encouraging for all those countries who believe in humanity and who believe in human rights, in right of survival of a nation and right of self-determination of a nation. That is very important. And Omar, that the synergy is very important because this is the time when the whole Western population and the whole Western people and youth is standing with Palestine. So I think that public opinion all over the world is in favor of Palestine. That is very important to implement, and first to take and then to implement this decision. But unfortunately, this decision has to be implemented through UN Security Council because that suggestion, that ruling would go to UN Security Council to implement that, to make arrangements for. And as far as UN General Assembly is concerned, that is very positive about everything going in favor of Palestine, but unfortunately UN Security Council is not. So I think that much more has to be done for implementing these genocide and blocking Israel to conduct more, to carry more Palestinian territories and other ways taken by Israeli government. I think that much has to be done, and there should be, and again applications and calling of UN special sessions to implement that. I think that all the non-permanent members of UN Security Council and all the members of UN General Assembly are required to file again and again petition to call UN Security Council meeting to implement that ICJ decision. Only then the world would be sensitized, because if there would be resolution by UNGA with huge majority in favor of implementing these, and I think that would be so. Pakistan with all other Muslim states can initiate with the signature of 50 countries to conduct a special session of UNGA, passing that resolution in favor of implementing this decision that can mobilize UN Security Council to take this decision as well.
All right. I think that this situation is also extremely tense because of Fayyaz Shukr's assassination and because of Ismail Hania's assassination, the reactions,
and
the verbal reactions that have
series
been
of 10-15 people, and more than that, the war is to be escalated to the whole region, and that is visible. If there would be attack on Iran or there would be counter-attack to Israel, the whole Muslim world is in between, and that population already has been suffering. 11 million people died in the war in Middle East in the last 3 decades. So we cannot afford to go for that.
I hope there's more responsible attitude by the powers
and understanding about this.
Exactly, I totally agree with you on that. Let's begin on our second story, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, Dr. Mahmood continues to join us, and our second story concerns Bangladesh. Now, Hasina Wajid, after 15-year rule, is no longer the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. In fact, she has fled Bangladesh and is currently in India, or as we speak, might not be in India, might have left for another country. But this is exactly what has happened. How this happened is a protest by the students because of a certain law that had been taken out in 2018 that was put back by a Bangladeshi High Court, and that is what led to these protests. These protests became violent. More than 400 students have been killed since these protests began. 100 on Monday, more than 100 in fact on Monday alone. To talk about this and the repercussions and the current political situation in Bangladesh, we've been joined of course, as I said, by Dr. Amna Mahmood in the studios, but also by Shakil Ahmed Robin. He's a protester leader in Bangladesh. I'll begin with you, Shakil. Thank you very much to have joined us. It's a very important topic for your country. It's an important time for your country, and it's a very important situation for the region as well, as we reflect and we see what's happening in Bangladesh. What, in your point of view, I'd like your perspective of the reason behind the unrest, and how did it accentuate to this extent that there were more than 400 people who lost their lives and more than 1,000 injured?
I think, thanks for having me, first of all. I think the reason behind all these things that happened in last 1 month, that was started with an Quota reformation. After that, the stubbornness of the autocratic government, Sheikh Hasina had made the situation that worse, that almost more than 400 people, mostly the students, have been killed. And that's really escalated the protest, and in some extent there was no way to back, because we are calling for the justice of the people that have been killed in the protest, but the government of Hasina, the autocratic government of Hasina, was not listening our voices and try to demolish the protest by forcing excessive force by the police, and by firing to the unarmed students. So at the point we know that there will be no justice as long as Hasina is at his chair. So at the boiling point of the protest, the leaders of the protest decided that we have to have 1 point movement to redirect Hasina from her chair and overthrow the government, and then we only then we can find the justice for our brothers. So that's how, particularly if you say the government's operations and the excessive force that was imposed by the law enforcement agencies, especially by the police. So that's the killing of the unarmed people, not only the students but also children's and the underage students, like school students. So that's how it's escalated to that point, that all the people of Bangladesh wants to remove the Hasina from his power.
Shakil, now if we look at the current events, A, the parliament in Bangladesh has been dissolved, B, Sheikh Hasina is no longer in Bangladesh, and C, of course, the unrest that had begun is slowly and steadily going to dissipate. But there is one agenda point that of course the students have been putting, or the protesters have been putting to the army chief, General Wakiruzzaman, who of course announced her resignation in a televised address to the nation. And they say that they want Nobel laureate Muhammad Younus to lead the interim government. Why Muhammad Younus in your point of view, and what has been the reaction from the administration, whether it be from the Bangladeshi army chief or whether it be from the Bangladeshi president, as far as the nomination of Muhammad Younus is concerned?
So the students have asked for this, an interim government is going to be reformed very soon in the country. So students said that this government should be led by the Dr. Muhammad Younus, the Nobel laureate. So this person is well known for his work all over the world, and students like youths like us all believe in him. So the students think that he is the right person to take the situation right now, to take the power and control the situation and lead the government till the next election is held. So I don't. Till now, there is no reaction from the administration side, like army or administration. But the students strongly want Dr. Muhammad Younus as the head of the interim government.
Shakil, please stay with us. We've also have a guest in the studio, so we'll come to you once I've asked my questions to her as well. Dr. Amna, Army Chief General Wakiruzzaman announces on state television that Hasina Wajid has resigned. The military is going to form an interim government, acknowledging that it is time to stop the violence after more than 400 people are killed. The parliament is dissolved. In fact, today, which was a key demand of the student leaders as well, and the major opposition Bangladesh National Party. What happens now in your point of view? Do you feel that the student unions or the protesters will continue to remain calm, or do you see a new wave of protests?
Omar, that is very unfortunate situation in Bangladesh, and since we are having close bonds with them, so we are feeling more. I think that legitimacy of the parliament is basically challenged in Bangladesh, because you see the elections were done
this year, in fact.
This year, and that was on the boycott of all the opposition parties, and it was just one-sided, uncontested. And Mrs. Hasina Wajid, she became the Prime Minister of Bangladesh,
and she's been with for 15 years.
Yeah, she has been there for the more than 15 years, and it was on the overriding sentiments of the people. So I think the government that does not represent people of the country, they are having no legitimacy, and that was lacking in Mrs. Wajid's government. And now when the parliament is dissolved, well deserved, and people are asking for that, and military takeover, but people are not trustful towards the military as well, because Bangladesh, like Pakistan, has been under military rule for long. So I think that students are active. They should have gone back to their positions in universities and teaching institutions, and because their first demand was accepted that Mrs. Wajid has resigned, Hasina Wajid resigned, but they are not trustful towards the military administration as they are making interim government. So they want to be watchful.
And that is why they are nominating Dr. Muhammad Younus.
And since he is respected, as Shakil mentioned successfully, that he is all respected, and he is apolitical in a sense that he is that's why he is having respect of the nation. And they don't want to have any government which can do any other engineering in the to block democracy and survival of democracy in Bangladesh. That's why they are still outside, and there would be no solution, I think, as the children, as the young youth is giving sacrifices, and they have already sacrificed 300 youth, and it is not a joke.
400 plus.
400 plus, but the, 300 were only the students. You know, it is very big number for a nation, because youth is the hope of a nation. and they are not going to waste those sacrifices, and they want to have a government. Unless a government of their choice is not ensured, they can trust that that would restore democracy and conduct meaningful elections in Bangladesh, free and fair, then they would go back. Otherwise, they are not going to trust.
All right, coming back to you, Shakil, I hope you are still with me.
Yes, I am here.
Shakil, Khalida Zia, the former Prime Minister and BNP chairperson, is released after years of house arrest. Of course, she had been jailed since the last couple of years. What do you see under the current circumstances, the political future of your country, that is Bangladesh? What kind of alliances do you see forming during the interim government and after, whenever the elections are held? What is the expectation from the youth of Bangladesh? What do they want?
You already know the former leader, Prime Minister Khalid Zia has been detained, and he was ill for so long time. He is not being released for his treatment as well. So first thing, when the Hasina government left the country, and then the president decided to release her. So I think that will bring a political peace in our country, as BNP is demanding her release for a so long time, and the Hasina was not listening them. But the students of Bangladesh, particularly the youths, they they learn from the history that every government that take the power once, they was not likely to leave the power easily. So they always try to grab the power. So the first thing when the protest started, that the student leader says that our ambition is to create a country, a system like that. This kind of autocracy, this kind of dictatorship could never come again in our country. So we even if there any amendment needed in our constitution, student will support this. So students are just asking that we should develop a system where everyone will be equal, and the power will not be held by one party or one person. So we are heading to a system where the power should not be grabbed by one people or one party. So the leader says that we are already in planning this kind of things, what we can do, and already they talked with many constitution experts that what should we have done so that this kind of situation never come to our country again. So in future, I think beside that, the election will be held very soon in our country, which is during the interim government, and the people of Bangladesh will decide who will rule the country. So even we think that there will be representation of the youth who bring the peace, who bring the freedom of speech to the country in that democratic election. And we hope that the youth and the leaders of youth will be the next presenter of the country.
Okay, of course. And of course, you have a lot of trust in Dr. Muhammad Younus as well. Stay with us. We have to go back to the studios. Dr. Amna, today the streets in Dhaka were largely more peaceful. I mean, traffic had resumed, and people were kind of following their normal routines of life. But of course, how can we forget, how can Bangladesh forget the 413 people who've been killed overall? Looking at these last few days, and also the statement that came from Hasina Wajid's son, who said that she does not want to pursue politics. His mother does not want to pursue politics anymore, and nor will anybody in the family do that. Is this the end of the Hasina era? A. How do you see, this is my second part of the question, how do you see her 15-year reign in Bangladesh, her tenure as the longest serving female head of government in Bangladesh? Although we can contest, but the fact is that Bangladesh also had a lot of economic
development.
Very strong economic 15 years, and it developed itself in that sphere in these years. But overall, if I had to ask you, how do you view this tenure or these tenures of Sheikh Hasina Wajid?
Well, it's a very valid question that, first I would appreciate the political consciousness and firm belief of Bangladeshi people in democracy and people's supremacy. And that is visible since I am the professor of political science, we used to teach this, that Bengal fell to East India Company 100 years before the whole India fell, and Punjab and this area fell. They lost, it is 1757 Battle of Plassey. That was the starting point of colonization of India. So they struggle 100 years more to end the alien rule, to colonial rule. So they are more politically conscious, and you see that they got separation from Pakistan 71, and then their own Bangla Budu, Sheikh Mujibur Rehman made autocratic arrangements and single party government. They assassinated. They said no, it was not our demand, it was not our passion and goal. So then there was martial law, and then they ended martial law because they wanted to bring democracy again, and they struggled for that. And you see, Hasina Wajid was a popular leader when she rose to the first time as the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. And you very well mentioned that she brought some very strong economic development and foreign exchange and investment in Bangladesh. And Bangladesh is not a cotton producing country, but they are every third
in
item.
In textile it has really risen.
And every third item of cotton all over the world is made in Bangladesh, and that is not a small thing. She contributed a lot. But one thing she forgot, that democratic leaders should be a democratic leader. And the people of Pakistan are not ready to compromise on their democratic rights at the cost of their people of Bangladesh. They don't want to compromise their basic rights for economic development. So that is not some Eastern European country under communism. So they started struggling. And when she saw that she is not able to control people, giving them incentive of economic development, she reverted to autocratic mayors, and what she did in this election. So I think that Hasina Wajid, she is not having any acceptance in Bangladesh. Now, coming to the second point, that whether she would be having some next
because her son has said that this is the end. She no longer wants
at one time she also said that.
Okay.
Hasina Wajid, she left her sister, and she was in India. That's why they were not assassinated with the other members of the family. And earlier she was alienated from politics. This is the time they are feeling the people's wrath and their unacceptance. That's why he is saying. Before that, he also announced that we have done a lot for Bangladesh. Hasina Wajid has done a lot for Bangladesh, and she will not do more. Bangladesh, democracy is a form of government that is for the people, by the people, and if it is not by the people, it cannot be for the people. So people can realize that, and Hasina Wajid is no more respected. And I think his son would be thinking of, like Rajiv Gandhi and others, he would come back someday, so he should.
But for the moment, this is the statement that has been given. But you said that such statements have been given in the past as well.
She has no place in politics now.
All right. Final question from you, Shakil. How is Dhaka today? How is Bangladesh today? How is the environment? Is there less of tension? Are there less of protests? Is the situation more or less coming back to normal?
Yes, mostly the people of Bangladesh is still celebrating the end of the dictatorship, and people are celebrating it's like a free bird. So everywhere you go to the street of the Dhaka, everyone is celebrating. Everyone is out there with their family, with their friends, and celebrating the freedom. But besides that, there some concern about the establishing the law now. So we are very concerned, and we are trying to establish the interim government as soon as possible to take control over the law and order situation. So, all after all over this 1 month of protest has ended, people are very relieved. People are very happy. People are very free and freedom. They are. You cannot imagine how they are enjoying their freedom, because in last 15 years, people are that much oppressed that they are not open. They cannot even openly speak about the government or whatever they want to say. So there was lots of uh, laws that had been created to oppress the freedom of speech. So I think the people of Bangladesh are celebrating, and also they are ready to establish the new Bangladesh now.
All right. So, wishing you and your fellow Bangladeshis all the very best, and I hope this new phase becomes one of the best phases in Bangladesh. And we wish you all the best. We wish the future interim government or whichever government comes into place after that, after elections, also all the very best. Thank you very much, Shakil Ahmed Rubin, to have joined us and to have talked to us about this. And thank you very much, Dr. Amna Mahmood, to have stayed with us during the entirety of the show, to have talked to us about Palestine and, of course, this development that comes in Bangladesh as well. I think it's important to understand politics, developments, democracy, and the different values that they, of course, contain from a perspective like yours. Thank you very much to have given us that. Let's come to our last two stories very quickly. The first is an attack on the Iraq base. More or less, of course, this is related to what is happening in Palestine. A rocket attack on a base in Iraq has wounded multiple US personnel on Monday. And of course, this comes in the wake of the heightened tensions over an expected Iranian counter-attack on Israel, which hasn't happened as of yet, maybe while we are speaking, but not as of yet. This attack, of course, occurred after US forces carried out a strike last week on combatants who were attempting to launch drones that were deemed a threat to American and allied troops. This is the statement that the US has said. Finally, Google has now an illegal monopoly on search. This has been said by a US judge. This has been ruled by a US judge. The ruling paves the way for trial on remedies, including potential breakup of Alphabet, the parent company of Google. Google has paid $26.3 billion in 2021 to maintain search engine dominance. This has been noted by the US judge. Senator Klobuchar also has highlighted bipartisan support for the antitrust enforcement against the big tech, and this is a huge development. US District Judge Amit Mehta of Washington DC wrote that Google controls about 90% of the online search market and 95% of the smartphones. And he said, and I quote, "The court reaches the following conclusion: Google is a monopolist and it has acted as one to maintain its monopoly." Very strong words indeed. Let's see what the future of big tech is. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new stories and segments that pertain to you, us in Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.